started. Are there any questions or queries or anything? Is there anything we need to announce, Andrea, about... Yeah, we're the activity in section this week. You should have your textbook for, so bring your textbook to section this week. Maybe I'll just mention, because it's come up as an issue, to go back to the theories of cognitive development, there is this problem about the difference between what the book says and what we say, and we've been hoping it'll get cleared up, but I think it's still confusing to people. So here's the central point. In the book, they describe two different things, core knowledge in the form of innate modules and core knowledge in the form of the theory. And what I think is that those are really two very different theories. And it's a little confusing because the book uses core knowledge as the word that they use for both of them. So in the exam, and as you're thinking about it, just forget about core knowledge. That's only just going to be confusing. Just think of it as there's two different theories. One of them is the innate module theory, which in the book is sort of the core knowledge innate module, and the other one is the theory, which in the book is the core knowledge the theory. So we won't talk about core knowledge. We won't use the word. Just erase core knowledge from your memory banks, and that ought to help to keep it. That ought to help to keep it clear. Yeah. Exactly. That's right. So the innate modules are there's something that's genetically determined, and it's there from the time you're born, and it's there for your entire life afterwards. And language is the typical example that people use to describe that. Okay. The mic is on and it's turned up, so you might want to just move down. Oh, okay. Is that better? Okay. And just a reminder again that for our explanation break activity, you don't necessarily have to talk to the person immediately beside you. If there isn't someone immediately beside you, you might want to just reach over to the person who's one chair away from you. But this is a really important, good thing to do, so I want to encourage people not to be inhibited by their sense of personal space from actually engaging in that activity. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do today, this is going to be another example where what I'm going to be talking about is going to include some of the material in the book, but I'm also going to talk about several other studies that are not in the book. So just to flag, there's material in this lecture that isn't actually in the book. So what we're going to talk about today is, in particular, the kind of case study of how cognitive development works. We're going to talk about what babies know about other people's minds. And the problem of understanding other people's minds is this really deep and difficult problem. So if you look around this room right now, what you actually see are a bunch of bags of skin that are stuffed into pieces of cloth and draped over these chairs with little dots at the top that move back and forth and a hole underneath that opens and closes and has air and noise that comes out of it, right? That's what you actually see as you look around this room. But of course that's insane, right? Nobody, except maybe people in the bad old days at Berkeley who ingested too many psychoactive substances, actually goes out and sees the world that way. What we see are people with emotions and desires and beliefs and ideas. In other words, people with minds that are very much like ours. And there's this ancient philosophical problem about how could you ever figure out about beliefs and desires and goals and intentions and perceptions from just looking at those bags of skin, when after all that's all that you actually see. So this is a very vivid and compelling specific case of that general problem that I talked about, the problem of knowledge. How is it that we could ever know so much about the world from such little evidence? And until quite recently, maybe 20 years ago, what people thought was that children really didn't have any way of solving that problem until they were well into the school age period. So people like someone like Piaget, for example, said that babies and young children were egocentric and solipsistic. They couldn't take the perspective of another person. They didn't understand the difference between the physical world and the mental world. So for Piaget, this process of understanding other people's minds really didn't start until very late, until children were as old as 6 or 7 years old. And over the past 20 years, what we've discovered is increasingly younger and younger children have more and more ability to understand the minds of other people. So what I'm going to do first is give you a little outline of what babies seem to know about other minds at various ages, and then I'm going to talk about how it is that they actually manage to learn it. So we already talked last time about the fact that even newborns seem to think that social stimuli are really special, seem to understand that people are special. And we said last time they recognize and prefer human faces, they recognize and prefer human voices, they recognize the mother's face and voice, and they imitate facial expressions. So all that suggests that at least from the time that they're born, babies at least understand that there's something special about people. And the fact that babies imitate suggests that they may understand something about the fact that there's something special about what's going on inside of people as well as what's going on the surface of people. But that's just the sort of beginnings of understanding about other people. And when you look at babies in the first 6 months or so of life, what you see is that they're very, very good at interacting socially with the people around them. So if you coo and smile at a baby, the baby will coo and smile back at you, and you can actually demonstrate that the baby isn't just doing that randomly, the baby's really reacting to your coos and goos and ahs. So young babies spend a lot of their time basically flirting with their moms and dads and the other people around them. So you say, oh, you're such a sweet baby, and the baby says, go. Now that may seem kind of stupid and meaningless, but actually that kind of detailed interaction, first of all, it requires a lot of understanding what's going on with other people, and secondly, it seems to play an important role in our sense of intimacy or attachment to other people. So even for grown-ups, perhaps rather embarrassingly, it may be that if you actually recorded our conversation with the people that we love best, a lot more of it would be like, oh, you're so wonderful, I love you so much, then it would be something that was deep and profound and gave you a deep understanding of what their underlying mind was. So babies seem to start out in this kind of one-on-one dyadic situation, understanding other people. And their cognitive abilities, this ability to recognize that people are special, to imitate people's facial expression, to respond to face and voice, all underpin this ability to do this kind of face-to-face social interaction. But when babies get to be about 9 months old, suddenly things are different. So there's a kind of triangle in the way that babies are now dealing with other people. It's very different from the way, say, the 6-month-old dealt with other people. So for the 6-month-old, everything is about you and me. You do this, and I do that, and we're interacting. The 9-month-old starts suddenly trying to integrate the information that he has about the external world into the interactions with the other people. So now it's not just about you and me on the one hand, and then there's a bunch of objects in the world on the other hand. Now babies start to do things that seem to reflect the fact that they understand that other people are actually engaged with the world the same way that they're engaged with the world. Let me give you some specific examples to make this more vivid. So one of the really distinctive things that happens at this age is something that's called joint attention. And joint attention means that the babies seem to understand that they and another person can be paying attention to the same thing. And you see this in behaviors like pointing. So when babies are about 9 months old for the first time, they start to actually point at things that are interesting to them. And not only do they point at things, but they'll look back and forth at you to try to get you to pay attention and look at the thing that they're pointing at. sometimes babies will even come and pull your chin to make sure that you look over at the thing that they're looking at. Now, that may seem like a perfectly obvious thing to do, but it's something that you don't see in babies before about 9 months or so. And it's something that we don't see in the same way in non-human animals. And it's something that, for example, is very difficult for children with autism. So one of the predictors of autism is the lack of this kind of pointing and joint attention behavior early on in life. The kind of converse of pointing is following somebody else's point or somebody else's gaze. So again, at about 9 months, if you point, or even if you just move your head and look at something, the baby will actually move his head to turn and look at the same thing that you're looking at. By the way, when I use examples of babies, I tend to say his, which is not actually sexism. It's just because all of my babies and grandchildren have been boys. So if I'm visualizing a baby, it's a little boy baby. I try to put in some hers, but it doesn't come naturally to me. Okay, so you're looking at something, and then the cute little boy is looking at the same thing. And not only are babies following your gaze, but they're actually, by the time they're about a year old, doing it very precisely. So for instance, if I turn to look at something that's way back here behind my back, something that the baby might not even be able to see from his perspective, the baby will also move around so that he can see the thing that he can't see at the moment. And in fact, you can show that babies are, down to small angles, are coordinating their gaze with the gaze of the adult. So the babies are very sensitive to what people are looking at, and they're looking at it themselves. They sort of recognize that they should be looking at the other person seeing themselves. In an absolutely fascinating study, which has since been replicated in many different contexts, the psychologist Susie Johnson showed that babies would even do this with a kind of robotic blobby thing that didn't look like a person at all. But there was a catch. What she did was she had this kind of amorphous blobby-looking thing that had a kind of block on the top that could move back and forth. And in one condition, what happened was that the blobby thing interacted contingently with the baby. That means the blobby thing would make these little R2-D2 beeps and squeaks. And it was designed so that when the baby did something, so the baby would go, oh, and the robot would go, beep, beep, beep. And the baby would go, oh, and the robot would go, beep, oh. Now, actually, they had someone behind the curtain who was activating the robot. But so in one condition, the robot is interacting contingently with the baby. The other condition is exactly the same squeaks and beeps, but now they're not related to anything that the baby's doing. So, in fact, the way they did this was they had the robot from one baby, they recorded all the things that the robot did, and now for the next baby, that robot just did all the things that they'd done with the last baby rather than doing things that were connected contingently to what this new baby was doing. So now the baby's seeing all the same chirps and squeaks and all the rest of it, but they don't have any relationship to what the baby's doing. Now, what happened is that the robot turned its not quite head. So the robot turned that blocky thing that was on the top in one direction or another. And what Susie found with 12-month-old babies was that they would follow the gaze of the robot if the robot had interacted contingently with them, but not if the robot hadn't interacted contingently with them. And some other studies showed that this was true even if the robot was interacting with someone else instead of the baby. If the robot interacted contingently with, say, the mom, then the babies would follow the robot's gaze, but not if it didn't interact contingently with the mom. And that's important because, remember, I'm sort of set up before, in the first 9 months of life, babies are doing an awful lot of this kind of contingent interaction. They're really focusing on, when I do this, what do you do? How does what you do follow what I do? And it's as if that kind of gives them a foundation for an idea about what people are like and who people are. And then when they get to be 9 months, they can start to use that foundation to do things like figure out, okay, that person is looking over, someone's moving their head over there, that means they must see something. I should follow their gaze and see what they see. Has everybody kind of got that? Yeah? Yes, that's right. But not if they weren't contingent to them. Okay. So already at 9 months, babies seem to be understanding something about what people are attending to, and they seem to recognize that I should be attending to the same kind of thing that you are. Another really important thing to know about people is that they're goal-directed, that they try to do things. So you could ask the question about when babies start understanding that people are acting on goals, that they actually want things and that they try to get them. And in a very elegant experiment, Amanda Woodward tried to see what it was that babies understood about what people wanted. And here's the way the experiment went. The experiment depends on this method of habituation. And the way the habituation method works is that it takes advantage of the fact that babies get bored really easily. So if you show babies the same thing over and over and over again, they stop looking at it. But if you show them something that's different or unexpected, something they don't expect to have to see, then they'll perk up and start paying attention again. And that very simple fact about babies has been the source of lots and lots and lots of, in fact, maybe most of the studies of infant cognition. So here's how Amanda used that technique. What she did was she showed the babies a hand reaching for a particular object. It's a ball in this case. So the babies saw that, they were interested to begin with, then they got bored seeing the same thing over and over again. Then what she did was she switched the objects around. So now the bear's in the place the teddy bear was and vice versa. And now she showed them either the hand reaching for the same object but in a different location, or else she showed them the hand going to the same place, going to the same location, but reaching for a different object. Now, if the babies think that the hand is just another physical object out there in the world, then that last one should be more similar to the first one, right, than the second one. So if you're just thinking about it in terms of its sort of superficial, perceptual features, its appearance, the first one and the last one are closer together, more like one another than the first one and the second one. But if you think that that hand is actually trying to get to the ball, then the first one and the second one are closer together than the first one and the last one. Because the first one and the last one, wait a minute, suddenly she changed her mind about what she wanted. She wanted the ball and now she wants the teddy bear. That's a surprise. And what Amanda discovered was that 7-month-olds would actually be more surprised by the hand going to the new object than the hand going to the new location. They would look longer if they saw the hand going to the new object. And then she had a very elegant control condition. In the control condition, exactly the same sequence of events happened, except now it was a stick instead of a hand. So a stick showed up from the edge of the screen and went towards the ball or the teddy bear. And when she did that, there was no difference. So the babies didn't seem to think that stick, when it went near a ball, did it because it wanted the ball. It was just a stick moving. But they did seem to think that when a hand went towards the ball, it was because it wanted the ball. This is a really lovely study that was kind of the first study to start the idea that very young infants could already understand fairly deep things about other people's minds. What are some of the other things that babies know when they're about a year old? One thing that we know is I mentioned before that that babies we've been talking about the fact that babies imitate facial expressions from the time that they're born, but you can also imitate things in more complicated ways. And again, Andy Meltzoff, who's the person who studied imitation more than anybody else, did an experiment where now instead of just imitating whether or not you're sticking out your tongue, the babies had to imitate an action that you performed on an object. And the way that the study went was that there was a box that could light up, and the baby came into the room, the experimenter came into the room, and the experimenter pressed her head against the top of the box like this, and the box lit up. End of the experiment, the baby goes home, the baby comes back a week later, and you put the box on the table, and sure enough, the babies, as soon as they saw the box, would put their heads down and go like this and make the box light up. And not too surprisingly, if they didn't see the experimenter did that, they never just did that spontaneously. So these babies weren't just imitating things like whether you stuck your tongue out or not. They were imitating what you did to the world. And if you think about what we just said about babies understanding about goals, it was as if the babies now were saying, okay, it's not just that I understand that it feels the same way to stick your tongue out for you as it does for me. It was also, oh, okay, if you want to make the box go that way, then I should also make the box go that way. And then in a really interesting follow-up study, Yuri Gergely et al. Did the same study, but now what they did was that the baby saw the experimenter wrapped up in a blanket so that she couldn't use her hands. So now the experiment is wrapped up in this blanket, and she leans over and touches the machine with her head. All right, now think about it. In this study, if you were being rational, what you'd think is, oh, okay, the reason why she used her head instead of using her hand, which is the obvious thing, is because her hands are in this blanket, she can't use her hands. And when you did that, then the baby just used their hands to make the machine go. So it was as if the baby said, oh, in the first case, in Andy's case, it said, oh, okay, well, look, she could use her hands. She's not using her hands. That must mean that there's something special about using her head to make this go. But when there was another explanation for why the thing was, why she wasn't using her hands, which was that her hands weren't available, then they said, oh, okay, she's using her head because she can't use her hands, but you could use your hands more efficiently anymore. Is that clear to everybody? It's a very, 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 very cool study. This was with and that was actually consistent with other studies that Gergely also did, looking at 12-month-olds. Which also showed that babies seem to have this idea about people acting rationally, deciding to do one thing rather than another for rational reasons. And this was a study that, again, used this habituation methodology. And what happened was that the babies first saw these two little blobs, and actually, interestingly, first they saw the blobs interacting contingently, like in the other experiment, so the big blob would kind of go, wah, 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 the baby blob would go, wah, wah, wah. Then what they saw was that they saw this event. Here's the mama blobs on one side, baby blobs on the other side, and there's a fence in the middle. And what they see is the baby blob hops over the fence and then gets to the mommy blob. Okay. Now, again, two different test events. In one case, the difference is now the fence is not. So the question is, what is going to be more surprising for these babies? Is it more surprising when they see the baby blob now go straight to the mother, or is it more surprising when they see the baby blob hop up and perform the same motion that he performed before? Okay. Now, again, if you just thought about this as a physical system, what you'd say is, well, that last one is closer to the first one, right? The same thing's happening. The baby blob is moving in the same way on the same trajectory. But if you thought that the reason why the baby blob jumped over the fence was because he wanted to get to mom and there was no other way to get to mom, then it would make more sense to think, well, if the fence is gone, he's going to just go straight to mom. Just like you think, well, if her hands aren't wrapped up, then she'll use her hands. And in fact, that was what they found. So the babies were more surprised by the second event than they were by the first event. And other people have since replicated this. Yeah? Oh, okay, so deferred imitation is just the idea that the baby will imitate what you do on an action after a delay. So that's after that 1 week delay. Rational imitation is that the baby isn't just imitating what you do, it's the baby's really figuring out what it is you're trying to do and then uses what you're trying to do as a basis for their imitation. Is that clear to everybody? And this is also a nice example of the way that having an experiment with two different methods can actually provide convergent evidence. So when you just have this kind of looking time data, it's always possible to think of other kinds of interpretations of it. What's really nice with this particular example is they had this data about the way the babies looked, but then they also had the data about the way the babies imitated. And that really supports the idea that the babies understand that people are rational agents trying to get things done and choose things in a way that just maybe one of those methods or the other method might not have provided strong evidence. So I think a really important thing to say about science in general, but especially about developmental science, and especially about infancy work, is that you really can make the strongest results when you have really different methods that are telling you the same story about what the babies think or believe. And this is a nice example of that. Right. Yeah, yeah. And it's not, they didn't kind of do the contrast with whether the blobs interacted or didn't interact, but it seems likely that the fact that the blobs were interacting was part of what was cluing the baby into the thought that these were actually agents. Okay, so that's all at 12 months. So all of this suggests that babies start understanding about other people's relationships to objects out there in the world by the time they're about a year old. Okay, is that the end of the story? No, it's not the end of the story, because if we look at babies at about 18 months, what we see is that they start to understand even more things about how the mind works. And this is an experiment that we actually did in my lab. We wanted to see, the experiment I just told you about suggests that even 12-month-olds understand something about what people want, like I want the ball rather than the teddy bear. But a really important question is, when do babies start understanding that people could want different things? I could want one thing and you could want something else. And again, the classic Piagetian view was that that was a very late development. So we wanted to try and test that. So what we did was we showed the babies 2 bowls of food, 1 bowl of raw broccoli, and 1 bowl of Pepperidge Farm goldfish crackers. And all of the babies, even in Berkeley, really like the crackers and really don't like the broccoli. The book was actually translated into Italian. It's actually been translated into 15 languages, but the Italian translator wrote to us because he was very confused about this little passage in the book, because he said that, first of all, why did American children like to eat little fish? That seemed really weird. And secondly, what was this thing about even in Berkeley? Like, was there a place where people thought you should eat things because they didn't taste good, but they were healthy for you? And like for an Italian, this just did not compute. This made no sense. In Italy, this couldn't happen. So we just left that part out when we went to the Italians. The Italians were going to get that. Anyway, even in Berkeley, the babies like the crackers and they don't like the broccoli. And then what happened was that the babies saw the experimenter taste a little bit of food from each bowl and either make a disgusted face or make a happy face. So either the experimenter said, broccoli, I tasted the broccoli, or else said, oh, yuck, broccoli, I tasted the broccoli. And then the baby had to decide, and then she put her hand out, and the baby had to decide what to give her. Would they give her the broccoli, or would they give her the crackers? And the finding is that the 15-month-olds would look at her for a long time if she liked the broccoli, but they would just give her the crackers. So they'd always give her the crackers. So they seem to think everybody will want the same thing. How on earth could anyone ever like broccoli? But the 18-month-olds, who are these tiny babies still just walking and talking, would give her the broccoli, the crackers if she liked the crackers, but they'd give her the broccoli if she liked the broccoli. So they seem to have already understood something about the fact that people might actually want different things. And that's just sort of the first step in a whole bunch of other abilities to understand that people can want different things, which we'll talk about when we talk about preschoolers. Okay.